By the time most men make career changes, they're not afraid of failure. They're afraid of losing who they think they are, because the pain of change feels louder than the pain of staying. This is part 2 of a 2-part video, the 7 traits necessary for a successful career pivot, change, whatever you want to call it. Today we're going to cover the last 3. These last 3 traits decide whether you evolve or you crawl back into what you already outgrew. Hey, I'm Kurt. I help men 40 or older stop tolerating a career or life that no longer fits. Or if you want the blunt version, think of me as a life proctologist. I would deal with discomfort and you can keep your pants on. So if you dig no bullshit, no fluff talk about life and career related topics for successful men over 40, then hit that like and subscribe button. All right, so let's get into it. The 3 remaining traits for a successful career pivot. Number 5, ownership. It's responsibility without the self-blame. Here's how it shows up when it's missing. It's the recruiter's fault. It's the market's fault. It's the algorithm. Everybody's to blame except for you. I'm assuming you're the type of person that does take ownership, right? Just as I was. But when I found myself going through this pivot, I was making every excuse in the book, and I didn't even realize it. High performers love responsibility until it threatens their self-image. They'll own the results inside the role because competence feels safe. But outside that role, responsibility feels like exposure. So they downgrade ownership into commentary. It's not laziness. It's identity protection. That's why it's seductive as hell. It's pattern-based. That's not strategy. That's toleration, outsource, and control. Look, every time you complain or you put the onus on something other than yourself, you're playing the victim. And doing that hands power over to something you can't influence. It's comforting because it lets you stay still without calling it fear. You're gaslighting yourself. The most important thing for you to do is just find 3 things you can control every day, even if they're small things, right? It could be maybe doing 10 push-ups a day, taking a walk for 10 minutes a day, whatever. Pick 3 small wins you can get every day and make sure you get them without missing a day. That is how you start getting some control back and ownership. Trait number 6, value communication. Shit, this is a big one. It's about translating your experience instead of assuming it speaks for itself. Here's how it shows up when it's missing. You're getting ghosted or you're getting interviews but no offers. That's because the decision makers, the interviewers, the recruiters, they can't see the bridge between your old wins and their new problems. You may have the experience. You may have the transferable skills for a particular role, but none of that matters if you cannot communicate your value. Because recruiters and hiring managers are not going to connect the dots between your past experience and your desired role. You must do it for them. How well you connect the dots and how well you communicate your value is the difference between a successful pivot versus an unsuccessful one. It means the difference between starting over from the bottom versus starting over at a level commensurate with your experience. It means the difference between just taking a job that you might not really want to pay the bills versus landing a role or finding a career and an opportunity with growth. It can mean the difference between giving up your lifestyle versus keeping your lifestyle or a similar lifestyle. And this is where so many people, including myself, get this wrong. My career pivot was a fucking nightmare. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't understand these things. And so, yeah, I did start over from the bottom. Experience doesn't speak for itself. Many experienced men think clarity equals accuracy. They want to explain it correctly, completely, and thoroughly. But most decision makers are not grading you on depth. They're looking for relevance. If your value requires patience to understand, it dies in the room. This is why smart people lose to clearer candidates. It's not because they're better, it's because they make sense faster. Under pressure, people don't choose what's best. They choose what makes sense fastest. Think of it like food. Why is pizza more popular than a Michelin 3-star dish? Not because it's better, because everybody understands it immediately. Pizza doesn't need a menu description. It doesn't need context, and it doesn't need trust. Now try selling torchon of duck foie gras with preserved Bing cherries and a red wine gastrique to somebody who's hungry, distracted, and deciding fast. That dish might be brilliant, but it loses because people can't follow it. That's what happens when you present yourself on a resume, online, or in interviews. You're serving fine dining to people ordering under pressure. They don't pick the best candidate. They pick the one that makes the most sense fastest. Remember, the world doesn't reward depth. It rewards translation. If they don't instantly see how your past solves their pain, they default to what feels safer. Trait number 7, identity flexibility. Letting your identity evolve without calling it betrayal. This is how it shows up when it's missing. You feel like you're letting people down, wasting the life you built. You stay stuck out of loyalty to a version of yourself that no longer fits. I mean, do you still wear clothes that no longer fit? No. So why are you wearing a career or a life or a marriage that no longer fits? Most pivots don't die because the next move is wrong. They die because the old identity still pays rent in your head and you sabotage future moves. This is the same identity trap that nearly ruined my pivot. It's like this. Most high-performing men are career-driven, right? So it's likely that your career is your identity. When that career comes to an end, it's like a bad breakup. It's hard to let go. See, I didn't realize this until it came time for me to pivot. Because for the last 5 years of my career, I was miserable because my passion died. But I couldn't leave because my career was my identity. Here's a question I wish I would have asked myself before that I'll pose to you now. If you remove your job title, how would you feel? Would you feel less? Not as accomplished? If so, that's a sign you're basing your self-worth and identity on your job title and that your career is your identity. Remember, your identity is not who you are. It's who you've been rewarded for being. That's the fucking trap. Because when the rewards dry up, most men cling harder. They double down. They protect the title, the narrative. Not because it works, but because that's all you know. And letting go feels like admitting the last 10, 15, 20 years was a mistake. The brain loves familiarity, right? This is why people stay in abusive relationships or toxic jobs. The thought of venturing into the unknown is more painful than remaining where they are, no matter how unhappy they are. It's not weakness, okay? And if this resonates, hey, you're no different than everybody else. I mean, why do you think I stayed in a miserable career for 5 years? You're not afraid of change. Be honest. You're afraid of losing face. I've been there. I'm guilty as charged. For those of us who've climbed the ladder and made a success of ourselves, the thought of being seen anything other than where we were, scary. But look, none of that is integrity. It's emotional hoarding, okay? Because evolution isn't betrayal. Staying stuck is. Here's something you can do. Write 2 bios. One from your old identity and one based on your next chapter. Read both and ask yourself, which one feels heavier? And if you're wondering, well, how will I know when I'm ready to make a pivot? No matter how ready you are, there will always be some fear, some doubt, okay? But the worst thing you can do is wait to be ready. Because that is exactly what cost me 5 years of my life and $250,000 and lost potential earnings. Remember, action leads to discovery. Relief shows up before confidence, always. Confidence requires evidence. Relief only requires honesty. When men say, I just want my life back, they're not chasing excitement. They're trying to stop bleeding energy. That moment matters because toleration ends the second truth feels lighter than pretending. It's pattern recognition. I'll make some statements. And if several of these apply to you, then maybe you're overdue for a pivot. 1, your current role no longer challenges you. 2, you've outgrown the box you're in. 3, curiosity is louder than comfort. 4, you're willing to be uncomfortable on purpose. 5, you know the next move won't come from a title. Any of those resonate? If so, how many? If this list doesn't excite you but brings relief, you're ready. Because relief is the tell. Excitement comes later. Relief means toleration just cracked. If your life looks fine on paper, but inside you're circling that same decision over and over again, start with the toleration audit. It's free. You can take it in 3 minutes, and it'll show you exactly what you've been tolerating and what has to change. The link to the audit is in the description of this video. You're not behind, you're overdue. Thanks for watching. Cheers.